Good morning, everyone. Today is March 20, 2023. It's exactly 10:40 in the morning, and this is the Saipan Northern Islands Legislative Delegation here this morning to hear the nomination for the zoning board on Mr. Henry Hofschneider. He's been nominated by Governor Palacios and Lieutenant Governor Apateng to serve on the zoning board. Before we get into the session this morning, may we please stand up for a moment of silence? Thank you. Thank you. This morning, we have our Senate Counsel joining us as well, Mr. Joe Bermudez, our Senate Legislative Assistant, Mr. Devin Macaranes, our Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Pedro Tawai, and also our IT personnel, Mr. Delbert Camacho. Thank you all for helping us this morning. Mr. Macaranes, can you please call the roll?
Senator Karina Magofnia. Representative Vicente Camacho.
Present.
Representative Diego Camacho.
Present.
Representative Danita Yanktamay.
Nani.
Representative Marissa Flores. Representative Blas Jonathan BJ Atto. Madam Chair, three members are, Senator Edith E. De Leon Guerrero.
Here.
Madam Chair, three members are absent, four members are present.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that the absence of Representative BJ Atto, Senator Karina Magofnia, and Representative Marissa Flores is hereby excused from attending this morning's committee meeting. Moving on, may I hear a motion for the adoption of this morning's agenda? Any second? It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Nays. Agenda for this morning is hereby adopted. Moving on to item number 4 under public comments. Is there anyone in the gallery to make a public comment regarding the agenda this morning on the nomination of Mr. Henry Hofschneider? You may please come up and state your comment, and if you have any written comments, to please hand it over to the Sergeant at Arms for our record purposes as well. Anybody? The public comment section, there's nobody there, so it's officially closed. If I may now move on to item number 5 of the agenda, may we request for Mr. Henry Hofschneider to please proceed to the front. And members, if there's no objection, before we hear any comment from the nominee, we will normally administer the oath for the nominee. And is there any objection from the members? All right, Mr. Macaranes, can you please administer the oath to Mr. Hofschneider?
Mr. Henry S. Hofschneider, you do solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, Mr. Hofschneider, you have the floor to make a statement before the committee this morning, if you have any.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Half a day. Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair Edith De Leon Guerrero and members of this committee. Good morning. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to come over and say a few things about my nomination to serve on the zoning board. I want to thank the committee for calling me to this hearing. I got the notice last Friday afternoon, so I didn't have much time to prepare, but I'll try my best to say as much as I can about my nomination. I also want to thank Governor I. Palacios and Lieutenant Governor David M. Apateng for nominating me to serve on the board. I want to start by saying that I've served on the zoning board for 6 years. starting in 2006, and I ended my term in 2010. Back then, the law provided for a member to serve on the zoning board for a maximum term of 3 terms, and each term was 2 years each. So I served a total of 6 years on the zoning board. I was nominated by the former governor, Juan Babauta, and then by former governor Benigno Fitio. In 2008, I was a member, and then I later on served as the chairman of the board. We've had zoning on the books. Zoning code the zoning code took effect in 1989, so we've had the code for 34 years. And since then, that code has been amended 3 times. And as the prior legislatures indicated, the zoning code had to be amended and was amended because time and experience showed that no law should stand the way it is, or it was when it first passed. People in Saipan, especially, are very passionate about land ownership and how they control their land. So I think that was the main reason why the code was amended 3 times. The Saipan local law that enacted the zoning law back in 1993, I never got off the ground to show why zoning was important in Saipan. It was suspended in 1994 when former Governor Fray Tenor came into office. He enacted Executive Order 94-3, transferred the zoning responsibilities to DLNR, the Department of Lands and Natural Resources, but at the same time, I think he suspended the zoning law. I'm assuming back then people didn't like zoning because for the very first time, they felt like someone else was controlling how they use their land. But zoning is very important. In 2004, I think, then Governor Babauta saw that development in Saipan needed to be controlled to a certain extent. And then he reconstituted and reactivated the board. And I became a member in 2006. In 2008, we passed Saipan zoning law. And that was a very comprehensive zoning law that we presented to the Saipan and Northern Islands Legislative Delegation, which adopted the proposed law that we did. We held public hearings throughout Saipan, received a few good comments, and also received a few comments that were not in favor of the zoning law that we presented to the public. I ended my term in 2010. The 2008 law was amended in 2013. And I think it was a very comprehensive amendment to the 2008 zoning law. During that 2008 and 2013 period of 5 years, I think the zoning law of 2008 had affected people's lives so much that the board back then thought, well, let's amend the 2008 law and bring it up to date. So what we have today is the zoning law of 2013, and I know for a fact that since 2008, 2013, the local delegation has passed amendments to the zoning law to change zoning districts, especially along main thoroughfares where businesses are located. And those amendments are, I think, in the best interest of the CNMI or Saipan, because the law applies only in Saipan. To consider zoning, I think it's very important that we look at Saipan as a whole. We zone areas in Saipan into different zoning districts. Garapan Core, for example, it's the main tourism area, so we should designate that area for tourist-related activities and businesses to support those activities. We don't want to put industrial activities within a tourism district. Residential district areas are very important to the people to live and thrive in peace, to be able to go out and enjoy the neighborhood. But if zoning weren't present, I think, we will experience chaos and different areas in Saipan. So we zone Saipan into different districts. We need to conserve lands for preservation, parks, public areas, schools, hospitals, businesses. So, in a nutshell, I think zoning is very important. If I'm confirmed, I would see that the current plan is carried through, laws are enforced, and we'll make our cinema the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your opening statement this morning, Mr. Hofschneider. Before we move into the discussion section of the agenda, I just also want to inform the public that we are broadcast on YouTube, cable channel 23, and also the link is shared on Facebook page of the legislature. Members, we are now on item 6 of the agenda. We are open for Q&A. Anybody? Recognize Representative Yang Timay.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Hofschneider. I've known Mr. Hofschneider for a while. I got to call him doctor.
Right.
He looks like a doctor.
Oh, thanks.
So, yes, when he was down at the mayor's office, he did a presentation for my committee on the natural resources and commerce and tourism last term. And he did a great presentation. That was on the village delimitation. Yes.
Right.
And when we did a public hearing, and he did a great presentation. And that one is related to zoning. And he was talking about how people are very, attached to the land, right? So he will make a great board member for this one, the zoning. And so let's put him to a test.
Sure.
So we read this morning, I don't know if it was this morning's paper about the Atkins scroll and the annex issue. What is the zoning district there?
Since that permit or order is still in the courts for a resolution between Annex and Atkins Crow, I wouldn't say more than that because I'm not sure. I think the Supreme Court has returned the case back to, or returned the case to the Superior Court to consider the case further, but that district or the project is located in a commercial district, mixed commercial. So the car showcase and parking lot, I think, is a permitted use in that district. The issue that the annex residents are asking the court to take a look at very carefully deals with the repair shop and the paint shop. That portion of the Atkins Grove development project, I think, is a conditional use, and the zoning board granted a conditional use for that portion of that application.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
I-
Representative Yantima. I recognize Representative Vicente Camacho.
Thank you, Madam President. Welcome, Mr. Hofschneider.
Thank you.
Um, going through your resume, your resume and work history actually falls in line with your qualification for this nomination. There's only one request I want to make is when you get in there, what I'd like to see happen is the board impose enforcement laws on all zoning activities. Other than that, Madam Secretary, I support Mr. Hofschneider's nomination. Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Representative Camacho. Recognize Representative Vincent Camacho.
Thank you, Chair. And welcome and good morning, Mr. Schneider.
Good morning. Thank you.
And thank you for accepting the nomination. As in line with Rep. Camacho here, your extensive background, I think you're very well qualified to return back to the board.
Thanks.
My only comment here, I guess, would be Saipan Local Law 20-25 in regards to the blighted properties. I don't know what is the status of the enforcement side of things in regards to that. I believe they have maybe 4 enforcers under the zoning, and I'm not sure what the statistics are in regards to the enforcement of this local law. And as you know, our government is we're trying to spruce up our island, and a lot of these commercial buildings and apartment complex are not in line, or do not conform with this law. And perhaps maybe if and when you are confirmed to look into this. That's it. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Diego Camacho. You care to respond to the inquiries? Mr. Hofschneider, go ahead, please.
Yes. The Nuisance Abatement and Blighted Maintenance Act, it's a local law, and it tasks the zoning administrator to enforce that law. And I believe that law also tasks the administrator to promulgate regulations to carry further the intent of the local law. Of course, we have a big problem in our island in Saipan about abandoned properties that are just left by the landowner or the lessee or whoever owns the property, and they're in plain sight, like Beach Road, for example. You drive down Beach Road and you look on the left side, on the right side of the road, and you see blighted properties, and this is not the buildings that we want our visitors to see. As residents in Saipan, we live here 24/7, and we drive down to Chalancanoa or Susupi or Garapan or up north, and we see it every day, and we wonder, when is this building going to be repaired or cleaned out? They're at risk when they're left in that condition. When tropical storm or a typhoon hits us, debris would fly over, or they're a place to harbor rodents or pests. Homeless, I think, take abandoned buildings for granted. So we need to put the landowners or the lessees of those properties to task. They have to come in and clean them out. So when I'm confirmed and I get in, well, the board, make sure the board works with the administrator. The board doesn't have anything to do with promulgating the regulations to carry out the intent of the law, but the board has a role under that law that when a decision of the administrator is appealed, it goes to the board to hear that appeal. So it's a big concern, and I'll bring it up to the administrator and the rest of the board members. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think that is very, very important, Mr. Hofschneider, and you're right. You know, if one was to take an air view map of Saipan, we ought to be concerned. It seems like the narrative out there is always talking about a first-class destination, but we essentially have numerous spots on the island that are considered junkyards. And I think we ought to be concerned. I myself, I'm very much involved in, assisting residents, requesting for assistance to remove cars that are dumped on their property. As we speak today in Navy Hill, thank you very much to Zoning Office for assisting, and also to the mayor's staff for helping a family with a disabled person remove a lot of junk cars on their private property, to include a bunch of trash that were left behind for illegal dumping. And so hopefully this week, if not sooner, then maybe next week, that the entire remaining vehicles that are left there on the property be removed from the family's property, so that they could start living their life and have some peace on their private land. I do want to bring to your attention, we mentioned earlier about industrial district. I guess here on Saipan, somewhere in Puerto Rico is considered, I guess, the industrial area of Saipan. And I always wonder about the, coverage for the area. At one point in time, we had the standing shrubs, right, like a fencing
Right.
that will cover off the area. I think that was, in my opinion, very beautiful. It removes the eyesore of the industrial area, which is right there in the heart of Puerto Rico way. So what do you think about that, of incorporating decorative planters or shrubs to make sure that we also have the necessary natural aesthetics to improve the area with respect to how it looks? The tourists and the local residents, they drive back and forth, and they see all of that there, which we know it's an industrial site, but it doesn't mean because it's an industrial site that we just let it look like a junkyard, pretty much, to be bold about it.
That's true. You drive down Middle Road or Talampaliorno, and when you reach that area in Puerto Rico, on the right side if you're going down south, or on the left side when you're going up north, there's a strip of land there that are used for storing construction equipment, heavy equipment. And at one time, I agree with the chairperson, there were vegetative screening to screen what's inside the fence or on the other side of the fence. So again, it goes back to enforcement. I think zoning should work with the landowner or the permittee using the land, and that's the Department of Public Lands and whoever the permittee is, to look for options how to screen their interior away from public view. There are options to use that don't cost too much money. Plants, for example, or screens like nylon screening to just cover view. So I agree. The zoning law provides for screening, like not just the industrial area, but when you drive around and you look at businesses or homes, they have their trash bins outside, and sometimes they're overflowing. The zoning law that we have now provides for the landowner, the business owner, the property owner to put up a screen so that is not in plain view from public rights of way.
Thank you. It seems like across the Commonwealth, we have issues of enforcement. And there's, I guess loosely, I could use the word, a certain shyness or reluctancy to enforce the laws of the books in order for our island to make sure it's managed properly. I hope that when you get in there, that you would have that, conversation with the existing board members to include the administrator of zoning office to really take a look and review where's all the necessary enforcements that needs to be done so that we could manage our island properly. Again, I go back to every day we talk about tourism and how we want to make sure that, the tourists are coming here for whatever purpose they want to come here for. Nice beach, nice environment, nice culture, everything else, and to include our residents, our children, to enjoy the island itself. But we seriously need to fix ourselves internally. If we need to fix our house to make sure that we truly achieve what we are trying to achieve with respect to having it as a first class destination, and it becomes attractive to both visitors and the residents alike. I do want to also have a conversation with you this morning. Oftentimes we see legislations in the legislature being pushed through for mixed commercial district or residential business district, right? And I often wonder with respect to land valuation, where if you look at holistically the entire map of Saipan, for example, where there are ideal locations for residents, and throughout the island, there's people living in different neighborhoods. But I often wonder about the devaluation of the area, the district area, when a certain business activity comes into the area to set up shop. And that diminishes the curbside appraisal value of properties in the area. So that's something that I would like for zoning to take a look at. And if you have a comment this morning on that, can you please share your thoughts with us?
Sure. In our culture, the only thing we have that we can pass on to our kids and their kids and future generations is our land, and how we use our land. I think it requires us to be firm, to be able to tell our neighbor to clean up your lot, clean up your front yard. You can't park your junk car, or you can't place that car there because you need to get the parts later on. So when we don't do that, when we don't encourage our neighbors and even ourselves, when we don't tell ourselves to keep our island clean, everything goes down. The diminishing of land value, it doesn't just hinges on the market, on a buyer, or it also, I think, is affected by how where this land is located. If it's located next to a landfill, I think the value would be, if it's intended its intended use is for a residential or commercial, like stores or shopping malls. I mean, the value is depressed. But when you have a residential subdivision like our homesteads, and you keep it up, and you keep non-compatible uses in that neighborhood, the value goes up. So Garapan District, for example, is a prime example. If we fix Garapan, and we're doing it now with the Garapan Revitalization Project, the value is going to go up. Why? If you make it accessible to the public, customers, and the foot traffic is easy, and how to get from one point to another, the value goes up. It's not just putting a business in anywhere and hoping that, the value would stay where it is. So um, every zone, I think, has a purpose, and it's to protect not only the health and safety of the occupiers of that zone, but it also keeps the value um, floating. It doesn't depress and sink to the point where you can't even rent it out or lease it or sell it. Thanks.
Thank you for that. I have two more items that I would like for us to talk about. Speaking of the Garapan Core, in our prior hearing under SNILD JGO for the other nominees for zoning, I did bring up the concern about the plan for the Garapan Core area, where there is a plan to organize for an association, correct, of the area, which pretty much embraces all the properties within that particular zone area. And I did mention it to the prior nominees before we confirmed them here at the Senate to carefully look at that plan. And I'm urging you to this morning. In my reading, quick reading of the plan, it's similar to, I guess, the intent as a public-private partnership, management of the Garapan Core area. But we understand too that there are private properties within those areas with that Garapan Core zone area. So what I'm alluding to is because of the assessment of fees for those that are in that Garapan Core area, I'm just afraid that in my reading that could be potentially be considered a silent property tax. And I'm very worried about that. So I am urging you to please revisit on that plan. Take a careful look of the language of the plan and see where that's going, because the last thing we want is for our citizens, our residents, our owners of private properties to be caught in those legal languages of what they don't truly understand. And, for all they know is that an assessment of fees is coming through, and then they cannot afford to assess it. Their property's not being leased out, and the association claims ownership or rights to the property because they're in what we considered, legally organized by the state government as a Garapan Core area. And now they stand to lose their properties. So please, Mr. Hofschneider, revisit back on that plan and see what you can do with respect to reviewing the language with whoever else, all the parties involved, so that our citizens are not left hanging with some major assessment of fees if that becomes effectuated and executed into law or legality, and they end up losing all their commercial property that is highly valued in the Garapan Core area. My last comment for this morning is the public easements within the entire island of Saipan. We noticed that there's establishments pushed back, right? There's a couple feet on the public easement from the roadside. And we see a lot of areas on Saipan where I think oftentimes businesses would like to fix it up and make their establishments much more attractive and not be bouncy or example in front of, if I may call it, Wild Bill. I believe in that area, the road is higher than the drop,
Right.
right? And so if you have a very low car coming in, you have to either go at an angle or you have to go in slow, because otherwise the bottom of your car would slam into the difference in height. And that to me is an eyesore. It's a concern for public safety. I think it also costs our people more money, when their car gets dented or maybe get a flat. So I'm trying to bring, I guess, a collaboration and partnership amongst CNMI state governments to work together and take a look at this area also of concern of the public, and to see what we could do to partner up with the establishment if they so want to do. But it's a public easement area, so I feel that as a state government, again, back to the whole narrative of a first-class destination, but yet when we're driving on Beach Road heading north or south, we have a destination where you have to literally, be careful, because otherwise you might lose your tires if you're going so fast just to pick up your lunch or dinner or to meet somebody there.
Right.
And that's my point. And if you have a small comment on that, I'd like to hear about it and we'll end our discussions from there. Thank you.
All right, just 2 comments. First, the plan to organize an organization or establish an organization in Garapan to charge a fee for maintaining the area. I'm pretty sure that whatever comes out of that, if it were going to be a silent property tax, I think our constitution protects landowners from the levying of property tax. So we'll take a look at that and offer our comments and thoughts when it comes up about what we can do to encourage businesses and even the government to fix the strip between a paved road and their private property. We see it all over Saipan. I've seen business owners or building owners, property owners, order a load of coral just to level the surface, and then it begins to rise, and it's a different elevation from the existing road, and it's a risk. It's a traffic risk. It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be that. So we'll work with the Department of Public Works. I know Beach Road Improvement Project will be taking off the ground. I saw that the contractor has put erosion control screening along Beach Road from Susupi down south. So they'll be starting on that project. And I hope the improvement would also include egress and ingress. I'm sure that's the term, right? And whatever's left in between would be sidewalk. They'll put in sidewalks or planter boxes to beautify the roadsides. We shouldn't have this pothole and different. It's like going off-roading to just get into a mom and pop store. We'll take care of that and we'll take a look at it.
So much. Any other comments from the members? Questions? None? All right. Short recess, please. Thank you so much for your
Thanks.
attendance this morning, Mr. Hofschneider. Short
Thank you.
recess. Thank you, members. We're back from recess. And so moving on to our next item on the agenda under announcements. We will have our council and our LA prepare the committee report on this morning's hearings. And if there's no objections, we will have it circulated for everybody's signature and submit it to the SNILD clerk and for a session for Mr. Hofschneider's confirmation. Any objections, members? None. Wonderful. All right, may I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting this morning? Do I hear motion and second?
So move. Oh, second.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn this meeting this morning. All those in favor say aye. Nays, this meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you, members.